Sir?
How do you find some of the main characters?
How do we find the main characters? It was a very long development period. It was do not try this at home. It was not a way to make a film at all. It was like, usually we pick up a small story, like in Jesus Camp, we hung out at the summer camp and we tried to tell the story of the Christian right through these kids, the boys of Barak, and we followed a school. So this was a totally different, it was the inverse. We picked a city on a gut that we thought, it was also my hometown, we thought we could learn something from Detroit, and then we set up shop there and moved in for a year and a half and basically moved to Detroit and stood around and waited for the city to tell us what to do, literally. Went into every coffee shop and every factory and every place and just started talking to Detroiters and saying, if somebody gave you money to make a documentary about Detroit, who are the 10 people you would definitely talk to? And they would talk, we would take notes, and then we would go meet their friends and their friends and so on. And then we started to formulate who we would follow from that. It's obviously a tapestry. It's not a specifically character-driven film because we really couldn't rely on 2 people or 3 people to tell the whole story of a city. So we really decided to make it a chorus, and that's what we attempted to do here, sort of floating around the city to give people an idea. So it was a very long development period that kind of never ended, I don't think that was a tough way to go. Ma'am?
Will people be trying to see this?
Yes, you were the first people to see it. This is our 6th screening. We finished it like 4 days ago. 4 months ago, Sundance. Anyway, they accepted this on a rough cut, a wing and a prayer. And so, of course, yes, we are planning to do massive screenings, probably actually starting in March. Even before the film gets distribution. It'll be on PBS, on Independent Lens, probably within a year, or sooner, we'll see, and hopefully we'll have distribution all over the country. Regardless of any of those 2 factors, the Ford Foundation is a major, squarely behind this film in a major way. They helped us pay for it, and they're going to pay for a huge outreach program on this film, and so we're going to be taking the city to Detroit, Cleveland, Toledo, and many other places very soon. So I'm hoping that we start screening the film to Detroiters in March. We're a little nervous about that. Detroit is very defensive about and very prideful of their city, and some people aren't going to like it, and some people will. We'll have to see, but we're bracing ourselves for some screenings in Detroit in March.
Who would you say is the biggest culprit between corporate, the unions, and low pricing manufacturing out of the country, the demise of auto industry?
Who I think is the biggest culprit? You mean be it globalization or unions or, well, as George said, we can all take a little blame, can't we? Gosh, I'm a filmmaker with an undergraduate degree in politics. I can't really answer that one. Who's a big culprit? Obama's trying to figure it out overall. There's a lot of factors. I think that I believe that it's safe to say that we, in the 80s, we all thought, including most economists in the 70s and 80s, I think it's safe to say that we thought globalization was only good for the United States. It was assumed that the opening markets was only a good thing. I don't think we saw the rise of these other countries in terms of their education, technology. I don't think we realized how fast it was going to happen. And obviously the underpinnings of all this is education. Even a lot of these high-tech manufacturing jobs that are still in the country, the truth is these jobs can't be filled. That they are having a hard time filling these jobs with skilled laborers. These guys are going to have to be retrained, or their kids are going to have to be trained to do some of these more high-tech jobs in manufacturing. We're just not there. That's a big problem. So I think, I hate to be a cliche, but the underlying thing in this whole thing is education. Detroit, 49% of Detroit is functionally illiterate. We didn't put that in the film because we thought that as soon as the audience learned that they would stop listening to our characters. 150 schools have been shut in the last 24 months in Detroit. And it's not just Detroit, so I'd go back to some major education initiative. Hopefully this is a bit of a love letter or a bit of a cautionary tale. Is Detroit the canary in the coal mine? Maybe not. We'll see. One more question.
I'm from Detroit. We just moved here to Salt Lake a year ago. I have a house in foreclosure. It's
in Detroit.
Touching, in the suburbs. But
okay.
The problem extends to professionals and the suburbs
that's
as well,
right.
and that's why we left.
Wow.
The film is beautiful. I think my favorite moment was when he was at the auto show looking at the Chinese car, and because it was interesting having to purchase a car as an adult, a new car. My husband not being from Detroit, going, "Are we obligated? Do we have to buy a Ford?"
Oh yeah, exactly.
And we bought a Honda and a Ford. But did you find during your filming with those characters that they learned something, that their mind shift happened, that they could see through your lens the problem?
So we have some Detroiters in the house who left Detroit, the suburbs of Detroit, a year ago to move to Salt Lake, and your house is in foreclosure. And the problem does extend to the suburbs.
Oh,
My parents live in a nice suburb. Half the neighborhood is for sale. I'm not kidding you. This is supposed to be like an untouchable.
That's
So
where I'm from.
absolutely, and I wish we could cover that. We tried to sort of allude to that with the opera representing that. But because all those people are in trouble too. You bought a Ford, you bought a Honda when you had to buy a car. Well, I'll tell you, when we started shooting in Detroit, or setting up our infrastructure in Detroit, my business partner, my co-director, Rachel's from DC, and we got this we were trying to lease a car, and our assistant was like, "Listen, Toyota will give you guys a really good deal. It's like $400 a month to lease the car." I said, "Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about?" She's like, "We can get 2 Toyotas. It's like $300 less a month for a lease." I was like, "You're gonna get me killed in Detroit. What are you talking about? I gotta drive up to the Union in a Toyota? Are you crazy?" People do not understand what it's like to be raised in Detroit. I mean, we could never have a foreign car in my house. I mean, it was like, no way. So we got Fords. We paid a little tiny bit more. Anyway, I know it's off the topic. What was the question? oh yeah. So what did our characters learn? Well, their journey that you see them go on, we follow them on that journey. Mr. Stevens has an epiphany at the auto show. He was like, "We are totally..." You know, and so and I was like, "I know." So we kind of learned it together, you know. And the weirdest thing is, we live in New York City now, and it's embarrassing to say, marketing works. I literally left the auto show, called my husband. We've never owned a car in New York, and I was like, "We need to buy a car. We need to buy." He's like, "We live in New York." I'm like, "I know, but we need to have a car." I mean, this marketing was so. But we ended up buying a Fiat, which is owned Chrysler, so it's still okay. My father will still speak to me because it's owned by. But it's seriously, even today, I can't do it. Thank you so much for coming to Detropia.